Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you can remain standing for the four-way test, please. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? I'd like to invite Cindy Kane up for invocation, please.
Thank you, Tom. Please bow your heads. God, we thank you for the blessing and joy of service above self. Thank you for those who are gathered with us today, especially Patty as she shares her mission at the First Ladies Museum. Bless Patty and the work that she does. Bless our fellow Rotarians near and far who continue the work of making the world a better place. Help us to recognize the many ways you provide for us. In tough times, comfort us and protect us. Prepared it. Amen.
Thank you, Cindy. And Connor Jarvis, new father Connor Jarvis, is over here today, and he's running out of the room. While we wait for Connor, Dorothy, I'm calling you to provide an update if you know anything about Lauren Holly's husband, please. Good. Great. Pleased to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, I've got the paper now, so we do have two guests today. Jerry and Ginny have Tom Keith with them. Tom, welcome. I should say two guests beyond our esteemed speaker. We also have Ashley Skajinsky. If I did that correct, the guest of Van Riemenstein. All right. That's it, Tom.
Thanks, Connor. I want to thank Connor while he's up and his company, Right Lahey Jarvis, and also Thane Billow and the Billow Company for sponsoring our IT this year. It's very generous of them, and it helps us provide our Zoom meetings among other helpful things to the club. So thanks to you both. Do we have any Rotary ambassadors or folks who visited another Rotary Club with us today? I find that hard to believe. Okay. We do not have any birthdays this week to announce, but we have a few exciting ones next week, including the gentleman at the back table, but we will reserve that wish for next week's meeting. I'd like to provide a recap of some things that happened recently. David Hall, could you jump up and just tell us all how the food bank went on the 23rd, please?
Sure. Well, yeah, we had the food bank last Wednesday. Had 8 people show up, and we ordered laundry detergent sheets. Thank you. So we separated 3 boxes of laundry detergent sheets into each bag's a little 60 to redistribute to pantries, and had a good time with like 200 cards. So it was a good day. So, and our next service will be October 25th, I believe, is the 4th Wednesday. So I'll have more about that later.
Awesome, thanks, Dave. Hey, Noah, I would do this if Dr. Doug was here. He's not. Could you provide an update on how the cornhole tournament went? And
sure, because Dr. Doug's online, so he had a great day for the cornhole. Rain the day before, it turned out very well. Probably about, Dr. Doug was instrumental in helping us. Scott Colligan leads the charge, and it was just a great day to have people at camp, and everybody enjoyed it, and they always enjoy seeing what they're raising money for. So thanks to anybody who sponsored and came out. We appreciated their support. Or Smiley worked the beer wagon.
It suits you, yes.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Laura. I wanted to, oh, by the way, Mel, before you sit down and get comfortable, is there any camp update, or are we just kind of idling with camp now? Okay, very good, very good. Awesome. Jacinto, are you willing to give an update on our youth exchange students, or anything you want to share about incoming, outgoing, your son, anybody else that's setting the world on fire? Thanks.
So as Mela mentioned, the Rotary Youth Exchange for the district met. We had our inbound students and some of the returning students participate, along with the youth exchange officers for the different clubs in the district. It was well prepared, well presented, and we're looking forward to a good year. Mael's adjusting very well. And speaking of Mael, if we still need at least another, if not two more host families, and it's kind of an imperative that we address that issue very soon. So if you can think of anyone in your networks, please let me know.
She's attending Stowe High School, right? And she's attending Stowe High School. So does the host family have to live in Stowe?
It's more convenient.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
much more convenient. Otherwise, they would have to drive her to Stowe.
And we have one student with us and one out student, correct?
That's right.
Okay, as our club.
Yep.
It is about the time where we're going to start taking nominations to be submitted for the election of our club officers. Normally, our club's immediate past president leads the nominating committee, which consists of the club's past several presidents. I don't know the exact number, 5 maybe. Linda Farkas is unable to do so this year, so Dr. McGregor has generously offered to lead that committee. And so if anybody has someone they'd like to nominate, including themselves, you can email that information to Dr. McGregor and he will start to compile that list for consideration. I really wish Karen were here because she could speak clearly about the importance of the election and the nominating process. So what I'd like to do is next week during our club assembly, try to have her stand up and give a couple-minute explanation as to the importance of the election, what it is, why we do it, and especially for newer members. When I came in, I didn't really understand the process, so I think it'd be very helpful to have her explain it. So next week, that'll be one of the things on our agenda to talk about. Cindy, if I can trouble you to get up and speak a little bit about our ongoing and upcoming service projects, and what we have exciting things on our agenda.
And Tom, Cindy has an additional announcement as well.
Thank you, Connor. I want to welcome Sari Bouchacross to them. We're excited to see her beautiful face back in the house. She's one of my favorite people. For service, I sent an email, and for those of you who have answered me and said, hey, how do we sign up? I will answer that email back with a link, but you can also find that link if you go into Club Runner or if you go into our newsletter. Go to the left-hand side, scroll down, you will see signups there. So OpenM, we are trying to get those days. There's 4 days booked for 1 hour each. We need 2 Rotarians for each hour. Once we get that booked, I'll add more days for OpenM, both in September and October. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. Next week, we're going to have a club assembly for a meeting. And what that means is we don't have a guest speaker, but we're going to have quite a bit of discussion about our service projects and opportunities. We're going to talk about membership and membership engagement. I think it's going to be an exciting, fun meeting. We'll do it in a format where we can kind of exchange ideas and thoughts. So please attend if you can next week. Thanks. There's something going on called Pours for Polio that is going on at a few different drinking establishments around the area on Thursdays. It's in the Acrotarian and I think on our website. It doesn't cost anything except for what you might eat or drink when you show up. David Miller, correct me if I'm wrong, do you have something you want to say about our club's specific opportunity to partner with us?
Yeah, so Julie reached out to me and asked, so we have on October 5th at Hop and Frog from 5:30 till 8:30ish, depending on how many people are there. We will be, that's the Akron area location. And like Tom has mentioned, it's come as you are, on your own tab. There's a private barrel room that Hop and Frog now has where they can seat almost 30, 35 people. So they have that area reserved for everybody. And that is the most recent one. They're trying to have another one coming up before then in the Canton area. And I think I'm gonna end up on Snapchat. I know it. It's videoing me. And then, can I make one more social announcement, Tom? Is that okay?
Absolutely, please.
So Brian had informed me, and this was, I think, approved by Cindy Kane, or however the conversation happened, so thank you. At the Dragon Boat race, the Akron team, the Wave Makers, won $350 in gift cards to Danos and Portage Lakes, and we are going to use that as a social opportunity. So we will be setting something up sooner rather than later. It's going to be to where, hey, the first number of people come, maybe, a drink ticket, or, we'll have heavy appetite for things, but we have some money to spend courtesy of the donation and courtesy of Daniel, so that's it.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Connor, if you're willing, are you able to collect $50?
Yeah,
okay. Anybody's happy?
Happy. All right, Mr. Boopy, we'll start over here.
I am happy for you, my brother. And this man, I tell you what, how many years you been married now? 6 years. It's completely over yet. But anyhow, congratulations on Bo having been born, what, 2 weeks ago now? Wow, congratulations, brother.
Okay, no, Jacinto, you're not happy. Okay, all right. Okay. Who else? Anyone else happy? All right, Mr. Reemish. I know you. Let's hope not. Yeah. I wouldn't be standing here if that was the case.
So Connor, I'm $5 happy. My daughter got married, or was married, I guess, on August 12th in Utah. It went really well. There were no bridezilla moments and no mother of the bridezilla moments, and very stress-free, and it went as good as anybody had hoped. So I'm happy about that. Connor, if you're not sure how that kid making thing happens, let somebody know and they'll let you know. So but I'm happy for Connor. I'm happy to have Ashley, and just another smart person at CLA. She just started Tuesday? Yesterday. So all right. Thanks.
Congratulations, Dan. Welcome, Ashley, again. Anyone else happy? All right.
I have $3 happy. Happy, Connor, for you and your new child, growing family. Number 2, I'm happy. Last weekend, I got a chance to go down and see my daughter start her play her first game preseason for soccer down in Flagler. Ended up in a 2-2 tie, but it was good to see her, and even though it was a short weekend. And then lastly, I'm happy that the Zips soccer team won last night. Dan and I went and watched them beat the number 7th ranked Vermont, and so it was an exciting game. Right, Dan? It was. All right.
The Zips. Who else happy? All right, Terry.
So this is actually the happy dollars, it's sad dollars. I think some of you probably read in the paper about the killing in Uniontown, 3 kids, the wife and father, their husband. One of our focuses this year is on mental health. And Melissa was actually on the board of community support services before I retired, and she still was. And so she was a real strong advocate for mental health. And for those of you who know Jim Merklin, she worked with Jim Merklin in his firm as well. And the other part that I wanted to talk about is the shooting that took place recently where the 3 black individuals got shot by the white guy. I don't know if that was in Florida or where that was at. But again, it talks about from a mental health standpoint, and we're talking a lot about racism and that the person is a racist, etc. But if you think about it, he was held over for mental health hold in the past, and nothing happened with it. And so you probably have an individual who had mental illness that ended up doing this horrendous thing because of the voices that told him what to do. And I relate that only in the sense that for the years that I worked at community support services, our residential aides that took people in right soon after they got out of the hospital, they were still very delusional. And the number of things that our residential staff were abused at, in the sense that it could be a black staff member who was working with a client that was white, and their paranoia would say some of the worst, vice versa from that standpoint. So again, many of those individuals that are suffering from mental illness, what's coming out of their mouths is not what they're really about, and that's why we need treatment. So I hope as much as we can, maybe I think Amy Wade's going to come and speak with us this year, next year, about mental health issues, and I think you never know what's going on in a person's home. This is a tragedy for Melissa and her family, but again, Summit County is very fortunate with the wealth of services we have. And so if you know of someone who's struggling at work, somebody in your family, you will reach out because there's help available, and hopefully we can prevent some of these that happen.
Thank you. Very important message. Yes, Denny.
One happy dollar. Last Friday, we had a reunion of those of us who started the Cascade Locks Park Association in 1986, which is why Tom is here. He was vice president, and we worked together very well. As any of you have seen the Muscle Store or Lock 15, you know we were the ones who started it.
Thank you. Welcome. Yes, Tom. Thanks for being here.
Your guest, you have to put it up.
No, you don't. You can just make it. You don't have to. All right. Oh, you want to? Okay, there you go.
$2 for you.
Go ahead, sir.
I served some time out at Camp Wainoa at the board as the director of properties and grounds. And all of a sudden, there were a bunch of young guys. We were all young guys. And all of a sudden, the guy from up at the top said, "We're going to put you through strategic planning process." We all thought, "We don't need that. You know what we're doing. Let's get out of my way. We're going to fix this up." So we had to spend a tedious month on the strategic planning.
Where's fun for your
But we ended up with about $1 million worth of improvements. Everything got rebuilt, the camp got made into a boys and girls instead of just boys camp year round, put up a leadership development center. They made enough money instead of going down in two, we made enough money to send back to the mothership. Am I right about that? Yeah. So that got me started on strategic planning. And then somebody roped me into the Cascade Locks Park Association and said, "Hey, they helped me downtown and some local cleanup stuff. We need your help over there." So I got into working with Virginia, and I suggested that we could have a strategic plan that would help put that muscle house together that now. And I went back to Doug and Larry and said, if I get involved in this and I get in trouble, I don't know what I'm doing, you back me up. And he said, yes. So I took that strategic planning process that I learned from the YMCA into the Cascade Park Association. And it was just a little old farm getting ready to fall down. She set us up as a partnership. We agreed to agree with the city of Akron, Metro Parks, Summit County's railroad, and raised our $1 million to rebuild the place. And yes, there is a development around that thing on the north side position was in excess of $200 million by the time they got done. Big deal. Out of the YMCA. By the time they got done building everything around the streetscapes and developing the field back, so it's a wonderful experience. And I live up in Florida now, and I'm still going to strategic. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Anyone else happy? Going once, Going twice. All right, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody. Now, for the moment at hand, Jerry, I'd like to invite you up to introduce our speaker today. Thank you.
Our speaker today is Patty Dowd Schmitz, President and CEO of the National First Ladies Library and Museum. Patty was named President and CEO of the National First Ladies Library and Museum at the First Ladies National Historic Site in March of 2023. She is a native of North Canton, Ohio, but spent the past 25 years of her career in the Chicago area, where she worked in executive leadership and consulting positions for various nonprofit cultural organizations. She has a deep passion for women in history and is a nationally known scholar of the children's author Laura Ingalls Wilder. In her current position as head of the National First Ladies Library and Museum, Patty works to further the knowledge and understanding of the many significant contributions by all our nation's First Ladies throughout the history of our country. Patty?
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you all. It's great to be with you. Let me get my PowerPoint going and then we'll get started. Okay, here we go. Well, to be with all of you today. Thank you. I'm the President and CEO of the National First Ladies Library and Museum, which is at, how many of you knew that there was the Library and Museum Canton, Ohio? Wow, I'm actually super impressed. That's outstanding. I'm so glad to hear that. We call ourselves Canton's greatest hidden gem. We've been around since the end of the 1990s, early 2000s, and we have a special site down in Canton, and it's not very far from here, so I hope you'll come down and see us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the museum, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about our featured exhibit this year, which is about Jackie Kennedy, and everyone loves to hear about Jackie Kennedy. So as I said, the museum is in Canton. It was founded by Mary Regula, who I'm sure you are familiar with, her husband, Ralph Regula, who is a congressman back in the 80s from our district down near Canton. He was from Navarre. His wife was a real go-getter, Mary, and she decided that there was no national place where the First Ladies were talked about, were celebrated, and their legacy preserved. So local and national connections. And she started the First Ladies Library, which is a collection of over 1,000 books and items relating to the First Ladies. And then we have an additional collection of artifacts about each of the First Ladies down at our museum site. And then in 2000, she and Ralph Regula worked to create the First Ladies National Historic Site on that space. So right now, the historic site exists down at, if you're familiar with Canton, if you know where the courthouse is, we're about 1 block south of the courthouse. We're right across from the Doubletree Hotel. And we have the historic Saxton House, which was Ida McKinley's childhood home and the place where she and her husband, William McKinley, the president, lived during his time in Washington. When they were in Canton, they would spend time there. We also have the First Ladies Library and Museum, which is in the old First National Bank building. And that houses our collection of items, and it also is a wonderful museum and a place for our visitors to see. We are the foremost repository of research and items about the First Ladies in the country, which is surprising, I think, to a lot of people. And some people say, well, why isn't it in Washington? Well, because Mary Regula was from Canton, Ohio, and she wanted to make sure that we had that here in Canton. So in 2000, when we became a National Historic Site, Hillary Clinton, Laura Bush, and Rosalynn Carter all made an appearance and dedicated the site. And so one of my goals is, we have not had a first lady here since that happened. So one of my goals is to bring a living first lady back to the site, which I'm hoping we'll be able to do in the next couple of years. There has just been a movement to create a National First Ladies Day, and that is the last Saturday in April. So look for next April to see whether we end up with a first lady. We're working on it. So the Saxton House, as I mentioned, is a beautiful 1800s Victorian home. It was built in 1841 by the wealthy Saxton family. John Saxton, who was Ida Saxton-McKinley's father, was the founder of the repository, and he was a wealthy businessman in Canton. And then his daughter, Ida, was raised to be sort of an independent woman, and she actually toured Europe on her own when she was an older teenager, and she worked at his bank, which in the 1850s was just not something that women did a lot, as you can imagine. And then she ended up meeting a lawyer named William McKinley, who had been a major in the Civil War, and she fell in love with him. And I sort of tell it like it was a little bit of the President Lincoln story, where Ida McKinley, as was Mary Todd Lincoln, they were the debutantes. They were from the wealthy family. They were the big cheese, down in Canton. She was a part of that social scene. And William McKinley, as was Abraham Lincoln, they were more sort of country lawyers. They were self-educated. They came about, and then they met these powerful women from these powerful families, and then they rose up through the ranks and became president. So it's always the woman behind the man. I think we all know that. So the home was renovated in the 1990s by Mary Regula. Again, she raised a great amount of money to renovate the home so that it would look exactly as it was back in the day of the McKinleys. And now you can tour it, and it's a wonderful tour if you haven't been down to do it. It's a beautiful home, and the restoration was extraordinary. Just the wood alone in that building is amazing. So I hope you're able to come and see it. As I said, we also have the original First National Bank building, which is now home to our, we have 3 floors that are open to the public right now. The top floors are offices for the National Park Service and our organization, which is the First Ladies Library and Museum. And so people come in and they can see our main exhibit, which this year is about Jackie Kennedy, and then they can see some other exhibits about various first ladies. And we also have a children's space, and we have a beautiful Victorian theater on the basement level where we do some programming. The site is a little bit spread out. We are on one between those 2 sites with some signage, and if you've ever been to Boston and you've gone on the Heritage Trail, where you see on the sidewalk, you can follow kind of what they call the breadcrumbs of things around the tourist areas in Boston. We're going to do some things like that down at our site to connect those 2 buildings. So this year, we're all about Jackie Kennedy. She's our featured first lady. Every year we do a big exhibit that's about one of our first ladies. And we unveiled Jackie in May of 2023, and she has garnered so much attention that I feel that we've put this museum on the map just because Jackie Kennedy sort of came alive for us. So it's been really great to talk about her all year long. And I'm going to give you a little bit of the history of Jackie Kennedy. And one of the things that we like to say at the First Ladies Library and Museum is we try to talk about the First Lady as her as a whole woman, as her entire life. Most people, when they think about first ladies, they think about the 4 or the 8 years that they were in the White House, right? And then they are somewhat subjugated to their husbands, and modern times have come about. The first ladies have taken on many causes, and they've done so many things for leadership and women in this country. And so we like to take a look at their entire life. Where did they start, and how did they go through that time of being wife to a president, and then what did they do with the end of their life? So when you come down to the museum, that's what you'll see, is more about the whole lady. And it's very interesting when you think about Jackie Kennedy, as we all know, and she had one of the shorter tenures in the White House, but she is so well known. She's I would say, likely our most famous first lady, and she really had a big life beyond just what went on in the White House. Our exhibit that we have down there was donated to us by a man named Monty Durham. How many of you know Say Yes to the Dress? Have you ever seen that show. Yeah. So Monty Durham is a TV personality who has been an uber Jackie Kennedy fan his entire life, and he has spent almost 50 years accumulating Jackie Kennedy artifacts. And last year, he came to the First Ladies Library Museum and said, you know what, COVID happened, I need to make an office, I have this entire Jackie Kennedy room, I need to get rid of all of this, and I want you all to have it. So he donated his entire collection to the National First Ladies Library, and it includes this beautiful wedding dress, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But that is a replica of Jackie's wedding dress. And the reason it's a replica is because the original dress is actually preserved at the JFK Library Museum in Boston, and it never comes out on display. So Monty had a gorgeous reproduction made that he donated to us, and we'll talk about the dress in a second. The exhibit's called Beyond Camelot, The Life and Legacy of Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and as I say, it really talks all about her life from birth to death, essentially. So as a young girl, Jackie Kennedy was born in 1929, which, as we all know, that was the time of the stock market crash and then the ensuing depression after that. But that did not really affect Jackie that much. She was born into East Coast wealth. Her mother was Janet Lee, who then married a man named Hugh Auchincloss, and you might know that name. She became Janet Auchincloss down the road. And her father was called Black Jack Bouvier, and he was a little bit of a raconteur. He was a bit of a womanizer, he was a bit of a drinker, and then eventually Jackie's parents ended up being divorced when she was 10, and as many of us know, when you go through something like that when you're 10 years old, that affects you for the rest of your life, and Jackie definitely felt the effects of her parents being divorced. She felt a lot that she was made a pawn in their relationship, and that her father and her mother were kind of always fighting for her time and her attention. And then she ended up with a bunch of stepbrothers and stepsisters as well. So she ended up with a much bigger family after Janet married Hugh Auchincloss. She loved horses. You probably all know that. She was equestrian, and you can see her in the picture there with her father. She was only about 4 years old, and she loved to ride horses, and she also loved reading. She had a love of books her entire life. She was very well read, and she was a very cultured person because of her love of reading and because of the schools that she was able to attend when she was younger. So she went to a boarding school, as many of the East Coast wealthy families sent their children to boarding school. She graduated in 1947, and sort of famously, her yearbook inscription, they said, what's your favorite song? The Limehouse Blues. What are you most known for? Your wit. And then at the bottom it says, what is your ambition? And Jackie says, not to be a housewife. And this was in 1947. So that was quite an ambition for a woman at that time, especially a woman who was born into wealth and was expected to marry well and have a wonderful family and produce a lot of children. So Jackie always had higher ambitions than just becoming a first lady or a president's wife. She had her own ideas of what she wanted to do in the world, and a lot of that revolved around reading, writing books, and wanting to become a well-known writer. So when she finished high school, I'm going to see if I can. No, I probably can't. That's all right. I'll read it to you. Oops, sorry. When she finished high school, she went to Paris. She fell in love with Paris. Her life's ambition became to go back to Paris and work in Paris. And so she worked really hard to earn a Vogue internship with the Vogue magazine to be sent over to Paris to serve as a Vogue editor for a year. And she actually got to the point when she did her application that she designed a whole issue of Vogue magazine and sent it to the editors that were choosing the person who would get this internship. She ended up winning the internship, but then her mother, Janet, prohibited her from going. And there's a lot of stories about why that happened, but it had something to do with Black Jack, her father, was in Paris at that time, and Janet didn't want her to be spending so much time with her father, and so she didn't allow her to go, which was a tremendous disappointment to Jackie Kennedy, of course, because this would have helped her further her ambitions to become an editor or a writer. So instead, she got a job as the inquiring camera girl at the Washington Times-Herald in DC. And what they did was she had her own camera. That was her camera, and I'm sorry, I forget the brand name of it, but she had her own camera, and she would go out on the street and she would ask random people on the street a question every day, and then she turned that into the Inquiring Camera Girl column every day in the Washington Times-Herald. So you can't see it because my face is up there, but one of the questions she would ask as an example were, are men braver than women in the dentist chair? What do you think? I don't think so. Yeah, and that's what she wrote. So she would talk about just crazy questions, ask people, and then she would write her columns about that. So she had this job, and she turned that column from something that really wasn't a very big deal at the Times-Herald to a very popular column that people really enjoyed reading. And she became a little bit of a well-known name around Washington because of her Inquiring Camera Girl columns. So then she meets John F. Kennedy, and better known as Jack, as we know. And she was courted by him for about a year and a half before he proposed. And that was a marriage, as many of those marriages were. They were in love, but they were also somewhat set up by their families. They were both wealthy families from the East Coast. They were a good match. And everyone said, hey, this is something that, this is a good thing for both of our families that we get married. Jack Kennedy was significantly older than Jackie. I believe it was 8 years older than she was. And he was just getting his start in politics as a congressman from Massachusetts. And his father, Joe Kennedy, who was very powerful in Boston, said, you need a wonderful wife to be on your arm as you're going to go into politics. And so Jackie was in love with him, and they ended up getting married in Newport, Rhode Island on September 12th, 1953, which would have been 70 years ago this September. So she had her dress designed by a woman named Ann Lowe, who was a black dress designer back in the 50s. And that was a big deal, obviously, in the 50s because it just wasn't something that normally happened. And Jackie, when she dressed, she liked to wear very straight column dresses. I don't know if many of you might remember her style with the boat neck and the very 1960s sheath type of dresses. That was her style. But Joe Kennedy said to Jackie, no, you're going to wear a big poofy dress because you are the star of the show. This was not really the dress that she wanted, but she ended up wearing it, and Ann Lowe designed it, but Jackie always said that she felt like she looked like a lampshade in that dress. And if you see, it's hard to see here, but you can sort of see there are a lot of little rosettes on the bottom, and it does look a little bit like a lamp. And then another great story about that dress is that Ann Lowe took the commission and thought she was going to make about $2,000 on the dress, and she was making Jackie's dress as well as her bridesmaid's dress. But she had a flood in her studio in Washington about 10 days before the wedding, and she had to remake Jackie's dress and all the bridesmaids' dresses in those 10 days. And she ended up losing about $700 on that process and never told the Kennedys about it. She didn't want to worry them before the wedding. She didn't tell them. She just got all her friends together and she remade the dresses. And so then later in life, when Ann Lowe had some medical issues, somehow mysteriously her medical bills got paid, and they always thought that was the Kennedys that did that. So, and then the last funny story after Jackie got married was she found out that she had thought that she was going to be able to continue to be a camera girl and continue her role as the camera girl for the Washington Times-Herald after she was married. But once again, Joe Kennedy intervened and said, no, you will not be working. And so he called the editor and said, you're going to have to let Jackie go, but do it gently. And so she actually found out that she was no longer a camera girl through a backdoor channel. No one came to her directly and told her that she wasn't, but one day she got up and she read that the camera girl was being replaced in the column. So again, Jackie wanted to be a writer. She wanted to be an editor. She had these big ambitions. And then sort of at each step of the game, her family structure was making it so that it was more difficult for her to do that. But she embraced her role, and then she became a mother. She became a mother actually 4 times, which many people don't know. Everyone knows that she had Caroline and she had John Jr., but she also had a daughter named Arabella, which was her firstborn before Caroline, who was stillborn. And then she had her son Patrick, which you may remember. She had him during her time in the White House a few months before President Kennedy was assassinated. He died 2 days after birth of a lung ailment. So she had 2 children who died shortly after birth. And also an interesting fact about her was that she had 4 cesarean sections, which in those days, women's health was not a topic of conversation and people didn't really talk much about cesarean sections. But because Jackie had a cesarean section while she was First Lady, all of a sudden American women started talking about C-sections. They started to know what it was, they heard more about it, and then it became part of the national lexicon. So as the First Lady, Jackie was, as we know, a style icon. She was the woman who everyone wanted to be. She brought the White House onto television as one of the first ladies to do a live televised broadcast. She remade the White House into a museum. When she got there, she felt that the Eisenhowers had not really kept it up very well, and so she completely renovated the White House and raised a lot of money to start the White House Historical Association and turned it into a National Historic Site and a museum. So the White House today is a bona fide National Historic Site and museum because of Jackie Kennedy's efforts. And then she brought that on television and showed everyone around the rooms live on TV, which was completely unknown to most people in that time. And then the other thing that she was as First Lady, she they called her the fashion diplomat. She was so beautiful. She was always so fashionable. And these photos here are Nikita Khrushchev and Charles de Gaulle. And she is charming the pants off of those men and paving the way for international diplomacy in the 60s when the Cold War was raging and having, positive relationship with Russia was difficult. So Jack always, told her that she was his secret weapon, and she was able to really charm those folks and make it a little bit easier for us to do diplomacy back in those days. And then, as we know, we had the fateful day on November 22nd, 1963, when the Kennedys were in Dallas, Texas for a campaign stop, and Jack Kennedy ends up being assassinated. And this photo on the right of Lyndon Johnson and Lady Bird Johnson is not the most famous photo that you generally see of that sequence. Usually you see the one where Lyndon Johnson is holding up his hand to take the oath of office. But I think this photo is very interesting because they were both being very consoling of Jackie in that moment. They knew that this was obviously very, most painful moment of her life. And they were very concerned about her and how she was going to make it through this terrible tragedy that had just happened. So it was a difficult day. As we know, Jackie then became our nation's mourner-in-chief. She showed the nation how to stoically bear a terrible tragedy, such as her husband being assassinated, and she really helped the nation grieve that time. She's also the one who coined the term Camelot. John Kennedy really liked the Camelot's, there was a musical called Camelot, and he liked the words from that. Let it never be forgot that there was a time called Camelot, and she coined that to make sure that his legacy would live on. And then there's the famous photo of little JFK Jr. saluting his father, which we've all seen. So then in the 60s, Jackie is in a period of grief. She truly has what we would define now as PTSD, but people did not define it as that during those eras because that wasn't really talked about as we talk about mental illness today. But she was physically present when her husband was shot, seated next to her. And so she had tremendous PTSD from that experience, and then also from feeling the pressure of a nation kind of counting on her to stand strong and really work through all of her issues in a very public way. And then if you remember, she leaned heavily on Robert Kennedy, who was John Kennedy's brother during that time. And then Robert Kennedy was shot in 1968. So she had a double tragedy within the span of 5 years. And she was sort of spent. I think spent is the right word. I think she was just ready to say, you know what, she had paparazzi following her. This was what I would call her Princess Diana time, right? If we think today about what Princess Diana went through, that's what Jackie Kennedy was going through. Paparazzi, people wanting a piece of her, being in the tabloids all the time. And she was just kind of done with it all. So she decided that she would marry Aristotle Onassis, who was a mega millionaire in the shipping industry. And he had a lot of things that Jackie could count on. He had a security detail. She had lost her Secret Service when she moved out of the White House. So he had security, he had wealth. She did not actually inherit a great deal of wealth from her parents, and then once President Kennedy died, she did not have the Kennedy wealth behind her. So she needed Aristotle Onassis for his security and his money. But the American public didn't like it. They said, you know what, you're supposed to be Jackie Kennedy, not Jackie O, not Jackie Onassis. We want you to be our icon the way we've always known you. And so the public turned a little bit against her, and then that was more difficult for her. So she kind of went underground for a few years. And then in the 1970s, she emerged again as a career girl and ended up fulfilling what she really wanted to do in the first place. She became a book editor at Simon & Schuster and Doubleday. She edited over 100 books in her career. She held those jobs as an editor from the time in the 70s until her death in 1994. She edited several biographies of famous people, including Michael Jackson, who asked for her specifically to edit his biography because he felt that she would understand wealth and fame. And she didn't really want to do it, but she did it because she liked him and she felt it was important that if he asked her, she should do it. And then she also edited the biography of Sally Hemings, who was the enslaved mistress of Thomas Jefferson. So she really liked to pick meaty topics, and she really liked to edit books that were meaningful in the world, and she felt that it was her gift to give these books back to the world, and she did that for almost 2 decades before she passed away. And then she ended up passing away, and she was only 64. She had a fall on her horse. She was still riding horses, and when she went to the hospital, it revealed that she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then she ended up dying in May of 1994, and that brought an end to the Camelot legacy. So I think what this illustrates is that, again, women are much more than what they are during those 4 or 8 years that they're in the White House as first ladies, and they have many things to share. Jackie Kennedy also, a lot of people don't know this, she was responsible for saving Grand Central Station in New York. She was very much into architectural restoration, and when she heard that Grand Central Station was going to be razed, she said, no, I'm going to raise a lot of money and we're going to keep that intact, and she had it they had it restored. So she really had a passion for art, for history, for books, for writing, and for being a career person. And in the end, she ended up fulfilling that, but she had to go through a lot to get there. So that's our Jackie Kennedy exhibit, and that's really, a piece about what we do down at the National First Ladies Library. So I would love to have all of you come down if you haven't been there. If you haven't been there in a while, you should also come because we have new things all the time. And we'd just love to see you. So if you ever do come, please just look me up and give me a call, and I'll make sure that you get a great tour and we show you around in a VIP kind of way. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Actually, we have a couple moments for questions if you're willing to take a few.
Yep.
Yes.
For sure.
So thank you very much. I thought it was
Of course.
great. Question for you, I guess it's an opinion question. Do you feel that the role of the First Lady has changed throughout the decades? And if so, how?
Yes, I do think it has changed. I do think that it has evolved with the modernization of women's role in society overall. If you look at Jackie Kennedy, her role when she was in the White House was to be a companion to the president and to be someone who complimented him in every way and made sure that, she was doing the things that he needed her to do. I do think now First Ladies come into the role with a sense that they have a platform that they can use and they have a voice, and they try to find those issues that are most important to them and really bring those issues to the forefront, whether it's children's health or whether it's mental health. Betty Ford brought breast cancer into the national view back in her day. So I think you see the progression of the First Lady's role over the years as women's roles have changed and women have become more empowered. So yes.
How many First Ladies are from Ohio?
8, yes.
Is that a lot compared to?
That's a lot, yes. I can't say, I don't know for sure that we have the most, but I think we do. We had 8 presidents from Ohio, and so we have 8 First Ladies from Ohio, yeah.
Thank you.
So when you speak of, like, every year you highlight someone, this year, of course, being Jackie, who else have you highlighted thus far?
Yes, so last year we did Nancy Reagan. And previous to that, we did Lady Bird Johnson, I believe, and then I would have to look back into our archives to remember. The other thing we have done is we've done more bigger picture type exhibits, like we've done First Ladies on the campaign trail, so that encompasses more First Ladies than just the one. But over the recent years, we've kind of tried to focus in on doing certain First Ladies and featuring them. And I'll give you a little hint that I think next year, we're just talking about this now, but I think our next year's featured First Ladies are going to be a duo of Barbara and Laura Bush. So I think that'll be pretty interesting, mother daughter-in-law situation.
The only reason I ask is there are some pretty incredible First Ladies in the history of this country.
There are.
I mean, some amazing.
Yes, there are. And we have done a lot of exhibits in different ways on many of them, and the historical ones are of interest to me too. As we said in my bio, I love 1800s history. So I love the Mary Todd Lincolns and the women, Lucretia Garfield from up in a Mentor, if you've been up to the Garfield site up there, she was a powerhouse. She advocated for equal pay for women back in the 1880s. So they were very powerful. They knew they were powerful, and they knew that people would listen to them. So.
And yes, I'd like to thank you for a wonderful presentation. I've had the privilege of visiting the museum. It's really wonderful. It's definitely worth your time to do so. And I'd like to add another detail to what you shared about Jackie. She was passionate about languages, and she was absolutely fluent in French. And how do I know that? Well, I taught at Miss Porter's School, which is a boarding school where she attended. Not at the time that she attended, but I was there. Of course, the fact that she had been there was stamped, throughout, the celebrations and so on. So I say that simply because I encourage all of you to encourage your young people to study foreign language and to participate in the exchange, Rotary exchange, because when you're fluent, you can talk to a French president.
It's true.
Right?
Yes.
And it makes a difference. It helps us step toward peace in the world. Thank you.
You're welcome. She actually was fluent in 4 languages: French, German, Italian, and English. So, yeah.
I think we got time for 1 or 2 more. Mela?
Thank you for your presentation. It was great. I had the honor for the first time to visit the museum in July. I took some girlfriends down there.
I thought you looked familiar. I remember.
I think you were there, yes.
Yeah.
And so we had fun. I'm a Jackie O fan, Jackie Kennedy fan. So it was well done. We had fun putting on the Jackie O glasses and taking selfies. And the theater downstairs and the films were just amazing.
Good. Good. I'm so glad to hear that. Yes. Oh, he's coming. Thank you.
Has the museum or the site put together a position of thoughts or made plans for the inevitable time?
I know where you're going. Yes, first gentleman. So, so I would say I've been here 6 months, and I would say we are thinking about that. Yeah, I think that it is inevitable, and I think that we do have to address that. I'm not sure that it has been thought about that much, about how we will morph what we're doing. So my background is in branding and communications and all those kinds of things. And there are always ways to be more inclusive. So I think that once that inevitable thing happens, we will include the first spouses. It has been talked about, do we change the name to the first spouses? Maybe, not sure. We'll see. So you'll be the first to know when we figure it out. Yeah.
Dan, go ahead. Who are the 3 silhouettes?
And the logo? So let's see if I can bring that back up for you. So I will tell you the logo is new. Let's see if I can get a better picture of it. The logo is actually new, and so we've always been known as the National First Ladies Library. That was how it was started, but we are a museum, so that was part of the things that I've done here in my first. Well, you can you see the silhouettes there? I don't know how to make it easier for you to see it. But We are rebranding to the National First Ladies Library and Museum. And yes, the idea is to have kind of a progression from our more historical First Ladies to our newer First Ladies. And if we could blow it up.
You want to make it,
Yeah, see if we can blow it up a little bit.
larger.
Let me see if, you go ahead.
No, you can do, I'm in your space here.
Trackpad on these.
Let's see.
So I'm going to ask you to tell me who you think they are.
Better. Yeah. You can try, I'll keep going more, guys, but can everyone see it?
Any guesses?
Martha Washington, Barbara Bush.
So the kind of the concept is that they're really not supposed to be specific first ladies. They're supposed to represent eras. So the first one is the Martha Washington, the Abigail Adams, the Dolly Madison, that era where they wore the, the cap and they had their hair up in a bun like that. The middle era, I would say Barbara Bush is a good guess. Jackie Kennedy is a little bit what that one's supposed to represent. And then the modern era is just a little bit more with the short hair, potentially Michelle Obama, kind of progressing from early ages in the 1800s, even the 1700s, all the way up to the modern era. So they're really not supposed to represent individual women. They're supposed to represent eras. So, yeah.
Thank you again so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Would you do us the honor of picking our daily lottery
I would love to
winner
do
here?
that.
All right.
Yeah.
For 5 big ones, everyone.
Okay.
5 Washingtons.
Should I just say the number?
Or Lincoln. Yes, just say, yep,
Okay.
go ahead here.
219-907. 907.
219-907?
Yes. Anyone? Nope.
No?
Should
No
we
one's got it?
do it again?
Who's in line behind me? Yeah, wait, 219-907. Who was after Tom? No? 90. Oh, yeah, it
Maybe.
might have been. Okay, let's pull, okay, we'll pull another one. All right,
All right.
we'll have Judge Michael. Yeah, it was Judge.
All right, this one's 219-905.
All right, that's gonna be Tom. There we go. All right, there you go. All right, there you go.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
for a great
Thank you for
presentation.
having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I was gonna kind of keep pulling those until I won.
Oh, wait, that's a lot. I'll do it for you in a minute.
Okay. Just a reminder that next week's meeting is a club assembly. That doesn't mean it's not important. I think it's really important that everybody be here. It's gonna be good. And we're gonna have a good time, so please come. And with that, I'll ring the bell gently.
I